thank you all for coming. This is a very packed room, which is very exciting. My name's Megan. I am the Community Action Officer here at Gloucestershire Wildlife Trust. I'll talk a little bit more about what I do in a minute. But today I'm going to do a bit of a talk on wildlife corridors and what they are and what they're good for. I'm hoping a song has come to all of your minds when I've said that. And just for a bit of a brief, I'm a very casual talker. So if you've got any questions, please just shout out, raise your hand if you fancy, or just shout at me. I really won't mind. And quite a lot of what I'm talking about, I might have talked about before, but we're going to go just in a little bit more detail about the sort of habitats that are within wildlife corridors, mostly terrestrial, so on the ground rather than the water corridors, because I will hold my hands up, that's not where I specialise in. So for a bit of context and just setting the scene a little bit more, this is Gloucestershire, so I cover the whole county with my role, which is fantastic. Get to go all over Gloucestershire, talking to people and looking at different habitats and things. And in Gloucestershire Wildlife Trust, we've got three main strategic aims, which are normalising natural solutions to climate change, more people taking action for nature, and stopping and reversing wildlife decline. So with that, my role is more focused in the middle, more people taking action for nature, but with that comes in all the other aspects. My goal really is to work with people and upskill people so that they can talk to each other and work with each other and actually build corridors and networks of communities and individuals across the county. And particularly looking at how we can encourage others around us, and particularly on that really hyper-local scale, to do more for wildlife. So that's a little bit about what I do. Now we always talk about this 1 in 4 number. And 1 in 4 people taking action for nature. And what I really care about is 1 in 4 people taking meaningful action for nature. When we say meaningful, we're talking tangible, measurable, directly positive impact for nature. So it takes it that little bit step further, which is really exciting. So I've got a very exciting job. So corridors. This is a really good example showing a wildlife corridor. Now at the back you've got quite a dense woodland, you've then got fields and some sparse trees, and then at the front we've got this really dense, diverse hedgerow. And what this means is that species that might live in the woodland will be able to travel through quite safely without having to cross too much open space. I don't know if you've ever played this game. It's a really good game. You play it with children, play it with adults. You all stood in a circle and there's one person in the middle of that circle. If you're trying to throw the ball over the person in the middle to someone else opposite you, it's quite easy for the person in the middle to catch the ball because it can only go in a straight line. Whereas if you've got lots of balls and you're all mixed up and there's somebody in the middle, it's quite hard to work out where that ball's going to go, where it's going to get thrown. And that is what this demonstrates. So if you're a little bird, for example, and there's a predator in the middle, if you're going in a straight line with absolutely no cover, it's quite easy for you to get caught. So that's why this mix of corridors is really important. Bats are one of the species in particular that are quite sensitive to corridors. So anyone know what this bat is?
I want to say pipistrelle, but I've probably got it wrong.
It's not a pipistrelle, but it's a good guess because you don't tend to see them like that.
Is it the bat that started COVID-19?
It's not, no. Well, definitely not that individual. So this is a barbastelle bat. Barbastelle bats are cavity roosters, so they'll roost in tree holes or in buildings and things like that. So if you've got some nice big trees in the back there with tree holes, you might get a barbastelle roost. Barbastelles are very rare in Gloucestershire, so they're definitely one of our priority species. However, they won't necessarily hunt and look for food in that really dense woodland, because as you know, bats echolocate, and if you're trying to echolocate in an incredibly dense woodland, that's probably not as easy as a bit more space. So what they will do is they'll come out of the woodland, they can travel really far, barbastelles. they'll go hugging around the trees and hedgerows because they particularly like moths, nice big juicy moths. So they'll be doing that. And that'll be a lot easier for them to do and travel and evade predators like tawny owls and sometimes kestrels, sparrowhawks, all these sort of birds of prey will go for bats if they can be zipping around and hugging spaces. So that's a really nice example. Another species that heavily relies on corridors. It is an adder, yeah, adders. So adders, they tend not to move very far anyway, so they're quite susceptible to localised extinctions. But they're not going to be moving across this huge space of open land. They'll want to go along hedgerows. I mean, if you were a little snake, as much as there are only venomous snake, you still don't want to be out in the open for too long because a buzzard or a red kite or all sorts of things will definitely pick them off. So they'll be travelling through our nice thick rich hedgerows, maybe across a little bit of open space into a little copse like you've got in the middle to try and find new habitats, new territories. Another species that likes a hedgerow in particular. Yeah, yellowhammer, little bit of bread and no cheese. That's what they sound like. So yellowhammers are, they're really struggling actually. They are most known for being farmland birds, so they'll be in the hedgerows between farmlands. Obviously if there's lots of hedgerows coming out or if the hedgerows aren't as thick and dense, they're going to struggle. They also nest, they like to nest low down, which is great for predation. They've thought about that really well. And they like low down, near a ditch and near an open field. So they're quite specific birds with where they nest. And again, they need lots of rich vegetation to be able to hop between and jump between, because birds of prey in particular will pick them off quite nicely if they don't have that. Another species. It's a little bit of a small photo.
Is that a hare?
It is a hare. Yeah. So hare are again sort of associated with our farmland habitats and our open fields and things, but they will have their young and their leverets will be tucked away in ditches and hedgerows and all sorts. If there's predators, they need to be able to travel through safely. It's mostly prey animals that like hedgerows is the point we're making here. And then one last, the one that makes everyone go, oh.
Dormouse.
Dormouse, yeah. So dormice are, they don't help themselves, shall we say. They snore loudly. They don't really do anything but go up if you've got them in your hands. So they really need that dense vegetation cover. And they're also particular, they're hazel dormice, so they need hazel, and they also like honeysuckle. But this kind of dense hedgerow, ideal for dormice. They can travel through and they'll be really happy. If you have, if you go into any woods, and you can have a look at your woods, and you'll be able to see quite clearly if it's good for dormice, because corridors aren't necessarily just ahead, they're also up and down. So if you're in a woodland and you've got lots of really tall thin trees, a really dense dark canopy, and not much going on underneath because there's not much light, it's not going to be great for dormice because they will be up in the canopy, they won't tend to come down. However, if you've got lots of different varied levels, Lower Woods is quite a good example now. There's lots of scrub, there's lots of middle ground, there's lots of tall trees, then they can travel up and down, up and down, up and down, which is really important for this species. So yes, we need things to be able to move around freely. That's the extent of my PowerPoint skills there that I wanted to show off. Yeah, so that's some species. We will also talk about lots more species in this one that like corridors. And that dog loves corridors. They're so exciting. So looking at one of our reserves as an example. So this is 2 pictures of the same reserve. Anybody know what reserve it is? It's near, sort of in the Sapperton Valley. No. It's Sickeridge, yeah. This is Sickeridge Wood. So it's kind of a before and after. You can see this conifer in the top corner of that photo. And when I started, this is 2 years ago now, we did some massive clearance. So it was taking down pretty much everything within a certain radius off the path. And you can see the difference, this really dense woodland and this really sparse open space. Taken at different times of year, obviously you've got the bluebells up here and you don't hear. The reason we did that was to open up the canopy, like I was saying. We had that tall spindly canopy which you can see quite clearly. And there's lots of species that this benefited. It looked quite dramatic initially, and the taking out of trees can often cause a stir, but it's completely essential in a lot of conservation work, especially on a lot of our nature reserves. So one species that do particularly well in Sickeridge Wood are these guys. Yeah, there's our southern wood ants. This is also a species quiz for all of you, and I'm taking note of who's doing the best. Yeah, so southern wood ants. If you go to Sickeridge Wood, when were we there? Probably April, May time. You can't stop moving, because the second you stop moving, they go up your legs. And it's really, there's so many of them. If you're brave enough to stand still, you can hear them moving through the leaf litter. It's incredible, the number of wood ants that are here. And actually, when we were doing this coppicing work, quite a lot of people did get ants going up their trousers, which was funny for us watching, not for those involved. So they're doing really well on this site, and obviously lots of dead wood and things means they can pick things up and move it all around onto their nests. It's fantastic watching them build their enormous nests. So well worth going to have a look. Another species that do well, not necessarily at Sickeridge, but when you have this mixed woodland.
I think there's a pipistrelle.
It's not a pipistrelle. It's one of our rarest bats again. It's a Beckstein's bat. I love Beckstein's bats. I talk about them at any opportunity. They are woodland specialists. They're also cavity roosting, so they'll go into tree holes and things. And it's quite a good example of what I was talking about earlier. A bat hunting in this habitat will find it a little bit difficult. They'll have to manoeuvre a bit more. That is what they're built for, but this will be a lot easier for them to go around and hunt. So woodland management is really important, and really important to do it sympathetically with species like Beckstein's bat. So if we know they're there, the management will change. Another species that will benefit from this work. Lovely, yes, thank you. So the large blues, we know they're at Daneway Banks, but we want them to move. They can't just be at Daneway Banks. Butterflies won't travel through woodland. They will travel through woodland rides, but they won't travel through woodland. So that is another benefit of opening up the big ride at the top of Sickeridge, is it actually means that a large blue will be able to travel through there, across the valley, and then over towards Rodborough Common and the Commons and potentially further. So that was a really important move for us to try and help the large blue spread. And I've talked a lot about animals, but this plant?
Lily of the Valley.
Lily of the Valley, yeah. The first sort of season after we did this work, you walk up through Sickeridge Wood and come up to the top ride, and the smell hits you. It was like it had snowed. It was incredible, the Lily of the Valley that came up. There was a bit beforehand, little bits here and there, but now Sickeridge Wood, that top ride that we've cleared that looked really scary and really sort of dramatic, and we've pushed the tree line way back, absolutely incredible for Lily of the Valley. So it was really, really important work that we did there. Yeah, get up to Sickeridge, everywhere. You can't move for it. It's amazing. I wish I remembered. Probably April, I think. April, May. Yeah.
I've only seen it once.
Yeah. I mean, and the way things were going this year, it's a kind of a free-for-all, I think, of when things are coming up. The bluebells are so early and all sorts. But yeah, so Sickeridge is a really, really, really good site for Lily of the Valley, and they're beautiful and they smell amazing. And also what was really good with the work that we did, we didn't burn anything. So everything that was cut down, we created dead hedges and different sort of layers and log piles and all sorts, which then created better habitats for dormice and for adders if they're moving through, all sorts of species, all sorts. And then some of you have seen this photo already, but other species that really benefit from proper woodland management are Yeah, particularly tawny owls. Now I like showing this photo because this is all to do with monitoring of woodlands and things. Tawny owls have had a terrible year this year. They had a bad year last year, even worse this year. Tawnies will prefer to nest in tree cavities if they can, so they'll prefer the tree cavities over the boxes, and the last couple of years the tawny owls in boxes has just decreased massively. So the woodland management and the particular sort of trying to stop these tall spindly trees as much as we can is going to have a massive benefit for birds like tawnies that can't nest in a tree that's that big. They need a decent sized tree that's going to have lots of cavities and things. So these are my little friends. The photo was all taken under license, all within BTO guidelines, all of that sort of thing, just in case anybody was wondering. So when I'm talking about management, some of you might have seen these graphs and things already. So this is basically what we did at Sickeridge. So we had this one path up the middle, and we've pushed it and we've wiggled it and we've moved it all around. And as you can see, as you increase the sort of different levels and the diversity of levels and species, the structure changes, as do the species. And then I thought we'd look at a flight pattern of a species of bat, which again shows the really clear example. Now if you picture the photo of the hedgerow and woodland side on, that's kind of what this image is showing. So you've got, let's imagine that's the hedgerow, that's a little copse in the middle, and that's the woodland. So as you can see, they hug the edges. They won't go straight across unless they're a serotine bat or a nocturnal bat, and then they do go straight across because they're enormous and they can. But generally, they'll do all this hugging around. And this is an example of a Brandt's or whiskered bat. They're very difficult to tell the difference between unless you've got them in your hand. But the Myotis species are quite good at flicking things off of branches and off of leaves. So that's another reason that they do all this hugging. So it's really vital that they can do that. So back to Gloucestershire, there's a few species. Again, this is something that I've talked about a little bit before, but there are quite a lot of species that heavily rely on corridors, particularly in our county. Might need to zoom in with your eyes, but any suggestions on what this bat is?
Horseshoe bat.
Yeah, so that's a great horseshoe bat. They have one of the biggest, if not the biggest, roost in maternity roost, in Woodchester Mansion. You can go and visit and you can look at the numbers and have a look at them on the camera and things. They share with the lesser horseshoe bats as well. That is, so that programme, I think it's in the Guinness Book of World Records. I can't remember how long it's been going, but for the longest study of horseshoe bats, which is incredible.
65.
Yeah, something, yeah, 60, 65. So it's amazing work. And some of the records and detail that have been found about these bats is really heavily reliant on the research that's being done there, so it's great. But they roost in one place and then they will travel and they'll hibernate in a completely different place, sometimes a completely different part of the county. Some of them might just go across the road, some of them can go from one side all the way to the other. So they need to be able to get there safely. That's the point that I'm making here. They have to be able to get there safely. They have to be able to eat while they're there. And while they're travelling, so that's really important. Another species that they're showing some quite good signs of wildlife corridor usage, these guys. Pine martin, yeah. So our pine martins were originally released there in Forest of Dean, and there have been records. They have crossed the river. Not too many of them, not in huge numbers, doing fantastically in the Forest of Dean, but they would, because the Forest of Dean is this huge woodland, essentially. It's perfect for them. They can travel, they can be as elusive if they want to be, whereas the rest of Gloucestershire isn't quite there yet. But they are moving, but they do need that dense woodland. They need to be able to travel safely. So that's another example. Lots of examples. Another mustelid. Otters, yeah. So I said I wasn't taught much about waterways because it's not really my knowledge area, but otters are a great example. Their range could be something like 20 kilometres and they have to be able to eat you know, there's these great big animals, they've got to be able to eat away. I've had a lovely video of one eating an eel, which feels slightly counterproductive actually, because we're trying to help the eels and then their otter is eating the eels, but they've got to, you know, they've got to do their job. They were doing really well in Stroud, and now they've all sort of branched off. So at one point I think we had 8 or 9 pretty much in the centre of Stroud, and there were lots of different young and adults and all sorts, and they have now spread out a little bit more. But they're found all over the county, and they also prefer our invasive crayfish because they're big and meaty and juicy, so they do a really good job for us as well of helping us with that species. These are kind of the champions for wildlife corridors, I'd say. Swifts, yeah. Swifts have also had a really hard time. Last year was an awful year for them. This year they're doing a little bit better, which is good. I don't know if you've noticed, there's quite a lot more insects around this year. It's not as wet, it's very hot. But swifts do everything on the wing other than mating. They're flying. Once they fly, once they fledge, they probably won't land 2 years, probably. So they'll just be on the wing, absolutely everything. So they need hedgerows, they need woodland, they need healthy corridors that they can follow, A, to be able to keep away from predators, but B, those corridors will attract insects, and that is so important for these species. Also a little side note for swifts. Have any of you got swift boxes? We'll get some swift boxes, be great. And you should get some callers as well, so you can get swift boxes and little speakers that play the sound. You play it 20 minutes in the morning, 20 minutes in the evening, start April time, just to make sure that any early ones come along. You definitely won't get any the first year, but you might the second year. When you've all got your swift boxes up, if you get swifts nesting in them, don't clear them out. A swift will have to gather all of its nesting material on the wing, as well as eating on the wing, as well as doing everything else on the wing. So imagine you do all of that one year and you have this lovely nest and you're really happy. You go away, you come back the next year and you go in and it's gone, all gone. It'd be like every time you get back from going shopping, someone's cleared your house and you have to sort of move everything back in on your own. So that's something to bear in mind. Swifts tend to come back to the same area, not necessarily the same nest box. So there have been some studies done looking at sort of swift pairs. They kind of mix up pairs and mix up boxes, but all in the same vicinity. So it'd be well worth getting a few boxes up and seeing what you get.
Does it matter which direction they're orientated?
Depends which box you get. So there are some swift boxes now that have a white top. That white top means that they don't get hot in the sun, but ideally you want it not south facing so it doesn't get absolutely baked. But yeah, there are some, I can't remember what they're made of, but they're basically all white. Doesn't seem to bother the swifts, they like them and the temperature inside stays the same. But yeah, the same with any bird boxes. But high up is the main thing, as high as you can get them, and with clear.
Second story apartment, we've got a north facing balcony.
Okay.
Would they be likely to come, because the council will probably just clear anything and put up on the external of the building.
Mm-hmm.
But could I put one in the balcony space? Were they likely to come into it?
Probably not. So because they're not great at setting off, they have to be able to just sort of drop and go and then swoop back in. So they need that decent clearing. Otherwise, you might have quite a few grounded swifts, which then every day you'd have to pick up and let go, which would be really nice for you, but not great for them. Yeah. So yeah, you might not get very lucky with that one.
Actually, on the outside of the balcony, the council clear that.
We could try, yeah, because we've got like a wall and a little railing, so maybe something could fit just on the front where I could guard it fiercely.
Yeah, possibly. You'd want.
They will upset the swifts, of course.
Yeah, you'd want quite a few boxes. That would be my only thought. You want at least 2, 3 because they're colony nesters. But yeah, it's worth a try. Absolutely worth a try. As many boxes, the better, really, for them. Right, so insects, pollinators. they've got to be able to move and eat. This is a red-tailed bumblebee. We talked about the large blue earlier. Marsh fritillary are another good example. They need dog violet everywhere to be able to move, and they're not going to go across the county if they haven't got little stopping points. It's like petrol stations almost for pollinators. They have to be able to stop and refuel and also protect themselves. Large blues we've talked about, but I've got to put them in almost every slide because I love them and they're very important. In theory, large blues could be across most of Gloucestershire if we had the right plants and the right corridors for them. And the right ants, yeah, of course. But they're doing, they're not doing too badly. They've had a couple of bad years, as is everything, but they're still around, they're still going. This is another given, another R, the dormice, but actually just all of our rodents in general will need those corridors. Voles and things need nice tall grass that flops, and lots of it, so they can have little vole holes and all sorts, and then they're very important for barn owls, short-eared owls that we also get up in the Cotswolds. And then hedgehogs. Hedgehogs have had a horrible time, the poor things. Actually more so in rural areas than urban areas. So I think urban areas, they've declined by about 30%, rural areas about 50%. Their preferred food is earthworms. They're not going to have any luck with earthworms at the moment. So if you can do one thing at the moment to help hedgehogs in your area, give your garden a bit of a water in the evening as it gets cooler, and that will just help soften the soil, so hopefully they can get more.
But not with a hose pipe.
I don't think we've got a hosepipe ban yet, have we?
I think it's today, isn't it?
Oh, is it? No. Oh no. We'll get your watering cans and your water bottles and things like that. Yeah, nice bucket out for them. That would be great. I need to check the news in the morning before my talks now. They can get really unwell if they eat too many slugs and snails, which it can give them really bad malnourishment, but also lungworm and things. So it's worth keeping an eye out. This time of year, you start getting all the little hoglets running around as well. So it starts getting really busy for hedgehogs. So as much as we are now on a hosepipe ban, get some water out there. And if you've got any deep ponds and things, make sure you've got lots of escape routes, because the little hoglets get very exploratory, so they might get stuck. But this is what my garden looked like. And I just wanted to show a bit of an example of corridors in more of an urban setting. So you get your bird flying, bolts in. Quite often you get long-tailed tits, blue tits, all sorts, and it looks like somebody's got pockets full and they're just chucking them across into the nearest tree, because they just bolt right across to get to the next spot of safety. There used to be quite a few trees here that were removed, which then meant that the bird life dropped dramatically until the rest of the garden started to grow up, so they could actually see that they had somewhere to go. And then, this is another really good example of my PowerPoint skills. That's what they used to do. All the way to the water. So they'd bounce along, they'd hang around there, they'd do a bit of a dip to get into this, hang around, eat all of the aphids and all sorts, and the green fly in particular that were in the birch, drop up there. They'd then usually sit, this is a Katsura tree, they'd sit there and make sure it was safe, because we had a magpie mob of 17 magpies that would bomb into the garden every time we put food out. Then they'd go and have a drink, and then they would do the exact same route back, and you could watch them. It was really easy to watch what they would do. They would never cross, ever. Even though there's a few trees there, they went the sort of safest, most dense route. So that's really something to think about if you've got a garden, and you can do this anywhere, balconies, any space. Just make sure that if something lands, it doesn't then have to do another crossing, and try and make that as safe as possible for them. Now this is an updated slide of our People's Nature Reserve. So like I said at the beginning, I'm trying to create corridors of people, individuals across Gloucestershire, and we've done exactly that. So I've got a couple of stories. So we've got a pine marten that's over here, and it's thinking actually it'd quite like to get all the way up to Northway. And before the People's Nature Reserve, it wasn't sure how to, but now it's got a really nice route. Go all the way through Gloucester, up through Cheltenham, and up to the top. and it found it really easy. Only had to travel a little bit without having somebody's garden to help. We've also got the same with some otters that wanted to get down to Frampton on holiday. So they managed that really easily. And we've also got a, what species should I say? A lapwing that wanted to go on holiday. So that's managed to travel, cross, jump over the river, hang around in Stroud, and then bumble its way over to the Cotswolds. And then another example. So you can hopefully see how important everybody's individual spaces are through this. There's a lot to go. There's a lot of people in Gloucestershire, and this is only a year's worth of people letting us know what they're doing. So this is really, really, really important. It's great that we have our nature reserves and our pocket spaces, but so far with the People's Nature Reserve, we've acquired another 55 hectare site, essentially, but spread out over the whole county. So this is really important, and particularly knowing, you know, what to do in your area. If you're in the Stroud area, get some oregano in, get some wild thyme in, help the large blues to travel through. If you're up here, maybe start thinking about what sort of heathlands you might be able to create in your garden, that kind of thing. So yeah, there's lots of stuff that you can get up to, but the ideal is that Gloucestershire will be bigger, better, more joined up, which I'm sure you've heard us waffling on about for years and years and years, but that is our idea, is that as we grow, the rest of the county will grow with us, which is fantastic.
What role do you think allotments help with all of this?
Massive role, yeah. So I haven't got allotments on here yet. That's coming up, and that will increase the space massively. There are some fantastic local allotments around Stroud where I live that are incredible for biodiversity, incredible for nature. Just the simplest things like changing from chemicals to companion planting can make a massive difference. Yeah.
Our neighbours aren't.
Yeah. Well, it's all right because you're the corridor and then things can jump across. But yeah, there's a massive number of allotments and things that will definitely be working towards it, and it's whether you've got your plot or whether your entire allotment has taken on that responsibility for nature is really important. But
they've got really nice hedgerows around the borders that
Yeah.
are absolutely filled with them.
yeah,
I've
yeah,
noticed a lot of people planting wildflowers on their allotment plots in recent years
Yeah.
as well, for pollination.
yeah, and they're also, I think, tastier. So the animals tend to eat them instead of eating your broccoli and things. So it's quite a good one. Yeah, so allotments are really important. School grounds are really important. Businesses, literally balconies, courtyards, any space is so important. Your grass verge out the front of your garden that you mow every day because your neighbours think it looks messy.
Just come to Matson and talk to them.
You've got to leave it to grow a little bit. Yeah, I mean, short grass has its place. It does have its place because, you know, blackbirds like to pick things that are out of there. But yeah, it's really important. Right, thank you. Any questions?